Alright, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be looking at the last mock draft of the 2022 off season. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Jacksonville. So obviously there's been a lot of rumors lately about who's actually going to go number one. I know for the most part, it's been Aiden Hutchinson. So Trent Baalke was in a press conference the other day, and he said he was deciding between four players, which I think everybody can kind of assume it's between Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Evan Neal, and Ika Mekwonu. I know it's like part of the year where everything's kind of a smokescreen, but I mean, you're drafting number one. I don't know why teams feel like they have to lie about it, because you're drafting one, man. No one's gonna steal your player. But the way he was talking about certain guys is Neal and Mekwonu, kind of one and the same. The way he was talking about him. He more so referred to Aiden Hutchinson as a good player, rather than this is a guy you got to take number one. And then the way he talked about Trayvon Walker is kind of in a defensive manner, where if somebody was but he kind of struggled with this, he was well, actually, blah, 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 blah. It's okay, so the way he's speaking about him, like I said, I know it's smokescreen season. I know people look way too much into stuff, even not even with the draft, what's going on right now, Deebo Samuel, all that stuff right now. But it's the way you talk about him makes it sound like he is way more in on Trayvon Walker than the other three. So, with that being said, I think Trayvon Walker goes number one. I can't wait to see the sports world explode if that happens. Because like I just said, I think everybody thought it was going to be Aiden Hutchinson for a while. But granted, it's not like the last couple years where everybody knows who's going number one. Like last year, everyone knew Trevor Lawrence was going number one. The year before, everyone knew Joe Burrow was going number one. So this year, it's obviously a little bit different. We have a couple players to choose between. Obviously, the positions really are either going to be between edge and tackle. But I think it's going to be Trayvon Walker, just the way Trent Baalke was talking about him. We'll see. There was a report that came out this morning that Baalke likes Walker better, but the owner, Shad Khan, likes Aiden Hutchinson better. So, I gotta assume owner has say over everything. But, we'll see. Trent Baalke obviously doesn't... that's a whole different topic. But, we'll see who gets to say here. I gotta assume Shad Khan does, but I wouldn't be surprised if Baalke somehow manages to sneak in Walker here. On to number two with Detroit. The way Dan Campbell talks about Aiden Hutchinson just gushes over him. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson visited their facility just a couple days ago. Obviously went to Michigan, will be staying right there. I think this is a match made in heaven. If Walker's going number one, no way Hutchinson moves past number two. Just as simple as that. Houston is interesting. I know there's kind of the meme going around Twitter and YouTube right now where it's what do the Texans need? It's they need literally everything. So, you're definitely in a position to take best player available here. If you're sticking with Davis Mills at number one, which they look to be doing, I'm not saying that their offensive line is really bad, because it's not. There's definitely worse O-lines in the NFL, but it's just I don't know. I'm a believer in building in the trenches. That's where you win. Obviously, that's where you win. So, Laramie Tunsil, left tackle. They moved their former first-round pick Titus Howard into guard last year, and he was not good in the interior. So I think a guy like Ika Mekwonu here that can obviously play left tackle like he did this past season at NC State, but has experience on the interior, where he was also very successful. I think it makes a lot of sense because you can kick Titus Howard back out to right tackle. You have Laramie Tunsil left tackle. Throw Ike Mekwonu left or right guard. And when the Laramie Tunsil experiment is over, put him right back out to left tackle. You don't even have to worry about it. So I think Ike Mekwonu makes the most sense here for as of right now and long term. So it definitely makes sense to me there. The Jets, I think, are really going to be the team that can either... Here's the thing. These three, I think this top three is going to be... I'm pretty firm in how this top three is going to be. So this could be where the Jets just keep everything in order, where we think like, oh, Kayvon Thibodeau or Ahmad Gardner, or they could go outside the box, take Garrett Wilson here already. Wouldn't throw everything off like drastically, but I don't know. The Jets are an interesting team here. I don't think they trade back from here. I'm not going to do trades in this mock, but I don't know. Maybe if a team overwhelms, or if by draft night they get Deebo Samuel and they had to trade their 4 and 10. This is kind of, again, best player available. I think it's going to be Kayvon Thibodeau. The way it sounds is that George Fant at right tackle and Mekhi Becton at left. Actually, you know what? They could even swap them, to be honest. Whichever one they're more... Because George Fant took a leap last year, and he's obviously established himself as a solid tackle, like a reliable tackle that you can just throw in there. And it's not like, oh, great, you have him in there. It's like, no, like he's going to be a good tackle for the Jets. And as long as you can develop Mekhi Becton a little bit further, I think the tackles are going to be fine. And with Ike Mekwonu gone, I know like I emphasized on that where it's like, okay, yes, he can play interior as well. Like Evan Neal is not going to do that. Charles Cross is not going to do that. 4 is way too high for Zion Johnson, you know. So, and then you go to your defensive line where, oh my God, I don't even want to butcher his name. Anyway, one of their edge players went to Jacksonville, which leaves kind of a hole there. But then you also still have Quinnen Williams. You're hoping that... Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Anyway, they have a good defensive line. But edge rusher is such a premium position, especially now, where if you have a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau here, especially at a position where you just lost somebody that was a good starter, and you could get somebody that arguably might even be better right off the bat, I think you have to take that. So, and like I said, building in the trenches is where you win. And we all know edge, if you can get a good edge rusher, makes your defense way better. So, getting a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau here would be perfect for them. So, on to the team that they share a stadium with, and the Giants. You have some great options here. I think... Here's the thing. Jermaine Johnson, I think, is going to go way higher than people think. Like, top 10. I'm not saying the Giants take him here, but he's definitely in play for them at like 7. Ahmad Gardner would be a great option. I think for the Giants, since you have 5 and 7, you have to kind of think of what are the Panthers going to do. It's like, okay, people think the Panthers are going to take a quarterback, may take a tackle, blah, 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 blah. So they also might trade back. So you don't know who's going to try to jump in front of the Giants. Like, they could take... I'll just explain. Okay, so I think the Giants take Evan Neal here. Because the Panthers have a way higher chance of taking a tackle than somebody like Ahmad Gardner or Derek Stingley at corner. Whereas that is still a need for the Giants, but way better chance of actually getting, say, Ahmad Gardner at 7, and way less of a chance of taking Evan Neal at 7, with the Panthers sitting there with a huge tackle need. So, for them, you have to kind of think about what they're doing. And again, with that being said, I think the Panthers do take a tackle in Charles Cross. Offensive line is such a huge need for them. It almost doesn't even matter who's going to be playing quarterback for them next year, whether they just stick with Sam Darnold, trade for Baker, draft one, whatever. Whoever is sitting in that pocket needs to be protected, and they can't protect anybody in that pocket right now. Their best offensive lineman right now is Taylor Moton, and he's a right tackle, not even their left tackle. So it has to be emphasized, and I think Charles Cross is probably the best pass blocking tackle in this draft class. So if he's sitting there at 6, I think it's somebody you got to take. And that being said, back to 7, Ahmad Gardner falls into your lap right at 7. I think if you're a Giants fan, that's dream scenario for you right there. You get the tackle you really need, and you get a great corner out there that you really need. And then with your second and third round picks, then you focus on edge. Maybe even get another receiver, all that. Moving on to 8. This is the first real spot that I see a wide receiver being taken. Also a first real spot where I see a quarterback being taken. This, I feel, could be a great trade-up scenario for another team, a great trade-down scenario for the Falcons, because I feel like they could kind of oversell this pick. Like, say you're, I don't know, take New Orleans, for example, that might want a quarterback for the future, and you have Seattle sitting here who could definitely take a quarterback as well. Like, you're going to want to trade up. And for the Falcons, you might be able to get that 16 and 19 out of them. So, again, it kind of depends. This is definitely a spot where Jermaine Johnson could go. Falcons have no wide receivers. I'm going to take Malik Willis here. Not a bash on Marcus Mariota. He's definitely a good quarterback, and I think that Malik Willis's play style is very similar to Marcus Mariota's play style. And if you can learn under him for a year, because I don't think Malik Willis is going to be good to go immediately. I think he's going to have to sit a year. So if you can have him learn for a year under Mariota and Arthur Smith, I think that puts him in the best possible situation to win. And this is a draft class where the wide receiver class is very deep. So I think you can afford to wait on a wide receiver, but get your quarterback of the future here. Which moves on to Seattle. And there's one guy that sticks out like a sore thumb here for me, and that is Jermaine Johnson. Crazy good edge rusher. I know most of you might even know the story at this point, but it's just he was so good at the Senior Bowl in practice where he didn't even play the game. They were just like, you're fine. There's no reason for you to play the game. You're just dominating everybody here. He tested well at his pro day. Just seems like a very Seattle pick, in my opinion, if that makes any sense. But, yeah, definitely a guy I see going to Seattle at 9 here. And 10, I think we're going to see our first wide receiver off the board. And to me, it's one of two guys. It's either Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams. I think Garrett Wilson is the best all-around wide receiver in this class, where Jameson Williams is going to be such a vertical threat that it's almost hard to pass up on, because they got a guy in Elijah Moore last year that's going to be a really good slot receiver for them. They still have Corey Davis. I don't know how much longer he's going to be there. He probably won't be on the team in 2023. But I think you got to go for kind of higher upside, and Zach Wilson is a guy that loves to throw the ball down the field. So I think Jameson Williams makes the most sense here. He could end up being the best wide receiver in this class. It definitely could be. Um, yeah, it's all based on preference here. What do you prefer, vertical threat or just all around? And I think the way Zach Wilson likes to throw the ball, vertical makes way more sense to open the offense. Washington, again, I think it's almost the same thing as the Jets. Kind of depends on preference. Do you want all around, or do you want tall wide receiver, 50-50 ball, something like that? I think they go with London here, and it's just because of how Terry McLaurin is as a wide receiver, where Terry McLaurin is your kind of do-it-all guy, where London can kind of stretch the field a little bit more. And like I said, he's taller. He's like 6'5". You can get your 50-50 ball, win the jump balls. I think as long as you have Carson Wentz there right now, give him a little bit more leeway. And I think London and McLaurin would be a great duo. And if you can develop De'Ami Brown, even better. Minnesota Vikings. I'm assuming I can't remember for right now, but I'm assuming I've done this in other mocks where it's like, to me, there's one guy and one guy only, especially if he's there, and I just can't see Derek Stingley going anywhere else other than Minnesota. I don't know what it is. It just seems like Minnesota is just going to be where Derek Stingley ends up going. Obviously, you're betting on upside with Derek Stingley. You're hoping you get the freshman version to LSU from him. And if you can get that, Minnesota's going to be very satisfied with this pick. So we're back to Houston, who went Ika Mekwonu. So again, like I said, it's kind of like, kind of need everything. But what do you value more? And I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm sure I'm going to mention it more in this, but building in the trenches and Jordan Davis just seems like the go-to pick here. Nobody notable is on that defensive line. If you can just get a big guy in the middle. I know everybody talks about Jordan Davis only being like a 2-down defensive tackle. I think that's mostly because of who he was surrounded with at Georgia, because their just entire defense was disgusting. I think you can make him a three-down defensive tackle. A guy that's... The thing with Jordan Davis is, like, you know he's going to be a good run stopper. It's just... I know with interior it's not as big of a concern as an edge, but it's almost like there's another guy you're betting on the upside. Like, is he a do-it-all defensive lineman like we all thought we saw at Georgia, and can he translate that to the NFL? So I think Jordan Davis would be a huge steal here for the Texans. Obviously, if you can just translate that to the NFL level. But we'll see. Here we are with Baltimore at number 14. This seems like the Trevor Penning destination. I mean, Villanueva just retired. Stanley is obviously on the left side. Well, obviously nothing wrong with Ronnie Stanley. He's a great tackle, but yeah, you got to upgrade that O-line. Especially when you have Lamar Jackson, who... I mean, I really have to explain Lamar Jackson. He can do it all with his legs. And when you got a guy like Trevor Penning, who's a good pass blocker, a good run blocker, you need one that can do it both on that offense. So I think Penning would be a great pick for them there. Give Lamar even a little bit more time to really develop his passing game a little bit more. And I think you got a pick that you like here. So first of Philly's picks at number 15 here. I think if you're Philly and you see Garrett Wilson right there at number 15, you got to be satisfied. They finally got a good wide receiver last year in Devontae Smith. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside just moved to tight end because he can't get separation at wide receiver. Jalen Reagor is looking like he's going to be out of Philly very soon. Having a duo of Devontae Smith and Garrett Wilson would be incredible for Jalen Hurts. It would even get their run game going a little bit more. And I know their run game is very good to begin with, but I think it would get that going even more. But yeah, Garrett Wilson falls into your lap right at 15, and I'm sure they're satisfied with that. And then first of the two Saints picks here at 16. The question is, do they go quarterback or do they go wide receiver? Granted, I don't think you go quarterback here. Just because of the Chargers and Eagles picking before, they're not going to take a quarterback. So, I think you see Chris Olave here. And again, kind of like the Wilson one, you got to be satisfied. He kind of fell into your lap. So, no reaching. Just letting the board fall to you. The Chargers, their run defense was so bad last year. I think you got to be satisfied with Devontae Wyatt. I know you probably prefer Jordan Davis with the run defense, but Devontae Wyatt is going to be just as good, maybe even better than Jordan Davis. If I had to pick one, I might actually pick Wyatt just because I just think he's better. That's not a slander on Jordan Davis at all. They're both very good. But I just think that Wyatt just has a little bit higher of a ceiling than Jordan Davis does. But like I said with the Chargers, run defense was so bad last year. You need somebody to plug that hole right there. And I think Devontae Wyatt can definitely do that for them. Here we are back with Philly. Philly is, I don't know, trying to decide on a linebacker or a cornerback for them. See, a sneaky pick here is Daxton Hill. Because Daxton Hill is a guy that I feel like could go as high as like 13 or as low as like beginning of the second round. I think you got to weigh your options here. Obviously, you have Darius Slay on the outside. But other than that, how much do you really trust the rest of your corners? I love Trent McDuffie. I don't see him falling much further than this if he does. I think he goes to Philly here. I think it's a great pick for Philadelphia. Get a duo of Darius Slay and Trent McDuffie. Obviously, it lives up to the hype. That's just a scary cornerback duo that no quarterback's really going to want to throw at. And then back to New Orleans. And now we're talking about quarterback here. I think that they're satisfied with Jameis Winston, at least for right now. I don't know how much they're worried about the future with the quarterback right here. Maybe they trade up in like the second round for one. Like if Sam Howell falls, or Desmond Ridder, something like that. But Marcus Williams just left for Baltimore. And you see Kyle Hamilton fall all the way to 19. And I think you got to snatch him up here. So, I think if you're both Philadelphia and New Orleans, you're pretty satisfied with how the board fell to you. Genuinely. Kind of same with Pittsburgh, with only one quarterback being gone at this point. I know that they were very high on Malik Willis, but I think you take the Pittsburgh native here and Kenny Pickett, and you got a quarterback that's ready to go. You got a spring competition between Pickett and Trubisky. And I don't even think you're really mad if Trubisky wins, because then that gives, obviously, Pickett a year of development, even though I think that he is the most NFL-ready quarterback going into this class. But yeah, take the Pittsburgh native. Why not? You need the quarterback anyway. So on to New England. This is kind of like one where it's between Devin Lloyd and Andrew Booth Jr. Even though I know wide receiver could be a pick for them here. J.C. Jackson's gone, obviously, so they do need to fill a hole there. But Dante Hightower was kind of getting up there, and nobody else really notable is that linebacker for them. I just think if you get this leader on defense, the play caller can do it all. Devin Lloyd here. That's just who you got to go with. I know it's typically been like, oh, who's going to be the number one linebacker in this draft, Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean. I think they're both very good leaders and play callers on defense. Both of them that can kind of do it all. I just think Devin Lloyd just has a higher upside. So pick 22 for Green Bay. I think for Green Bay, we finally see the thing that everybody's been wanting Green Bay to do. Finally take a wide receiver in the first round. At least you'd hope so anyway. And I think that they're happy with Traylon Burks right here. Another do-it-all guy on offense. Not necessarily much of a vertical threat, but more of a catch and run. He's not going to be taken down one-on-one. This big guy is like 6'3", like 230, something like that. Definitely satisfied with that pick right there. You got the Cardinals, who... It's interesting for them because they definitely need offensive line help. I know wide receiver has been kind of thrown in there a little bit. Even cornerback. I think I typically do cornerback for them. But, I don't know, Zion Johnson is one of those kind of... I know there's no such thing as a safe pick. But to me, I think Zion Johnson is kind of as close as you can get to one. And as an offensive line needy team at 23, and Zion just kind of sitting there, I think that's kind of who you got to take. Yeah, I mean, if you watched any of the Cardinals games last year, I know Kyler is more of a scrambling quarterback anyway, but it really just seemed like he had no time to throw the ball like at all. So especially if you can get one on the interior and even maybe establish a running game a little bit more with James Conner, the more helps. All right, Dallas. Dallas can go in a bunch of different directions here. Safety's definitely a need. Edge is definitely a need. O-line is definitely a need. No wide receiver, kind of. Not as urgently. I love Daxton Hill here. I love Kenyon Green here. I do like George Karlaftis here too. I just think Kenyon Green's got to be the pick. He's your Connor Williams replacement, which kind of like what I said with who did I mention this with as a replacement? Oh yeah, like the Kayvon Thibodeau one, where it's like you lose a starter there, but you probably get an instant upgrade here anyway to begin with. Here, okay, moving on to Buffalo, there's a pick I really like for them, which right off the bat sounds like it doesn't really make sense, but I'll explain. I really like Daxton Hill here. And I know what people think. It's like, well, you got Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back there, who are arguably probably the best safety duo in the league, which I agree. I definitely agree with that. Micah Hyde and Poyer both entering their, I think, age 31, 32 season, something like that. Which they definitely still have years left in them. It's just Daxton Hill doesn't just play safety. He can play slot corner too, and he's very good there. Which, for a team like the Bills, who have pretty weak cornerback room outside of Tre'Davious White, would help. I'm interested to see how creative they could get on defense, running three safeties as well. Whereas, Jordan Poyer could kind of play like that box safety and rush the quarterback, or you could just drop Hyde and Hill back. I think you could get very creative with those three. And like I said, Hill can play slot corner as well. Yeah, very creative. I think that would be a great pick for them. Help their secondary out a lot. On to Tennessee. See, a lot of people project a linebacker here, which I don't necessarily agree with. Brought Harold Landry back. No, that's not true. They did not bring Rashaan Evans back. Jayon Brown left to the Raiders. I just think that they have bigger needs. I don't necessarily think it's on the front side of the defensive, the front end of the defensive side. You could definitely go O-line here. Wide receivers for sure in play. Maybe even secondary again. I know they just took Caleb Farley in the first round last year. I love Jahan Dotson here. Get somebody to pair with A.J. Brown. A more dangerous weapon, obviously, because we saw Julio Jones did not end up working out. Already got cut. I love the Jahan Dotson pick here. I think him and a Brown duo would be deadly. Tampa Bay. So they just lost Ali Marpet to retirement. Alex Cappa went to Cincinnati. They did bring back Ryan Jensen as their center. I don't know, Tampa Bay's so weird, man, because it seems like other than, like, guard like that, they don't have, like, such a pressing need, in a sense. I mean, their cornerback depth kind of got exposed last year when Bunting and Davis went down. Like, other than those two, they just had nothing. So, I think if you're them, you got to look cornerback here. And if you want to just go best cornerback available, I think that's Andrew Booth. Again, like I just said, their cornerback depth definitely got exposed last year. And if you can boost that when an inevitable injury happens, or even throw one of them in at slot corner, I think you're very happy with that. Back to Green Bay. Took a wide receiver, finally. This time, I think you look defensive side of the ball to replace Zadarius Smith. And it's got to be George Karlaftis. This is not one where I think it's an instant upgrade. Definitely more of a downgrade, but that should not be a hit on Karlaftis. Very good edge rusher, more of a traditional edge rusher than something like Hutchinson, Thibodeau, or Walker, where these guys are like crazy athletic. More of a power edge rusher, if you will, rather than finesse. I think you can. He's not a guy where I see like stepping into the league and like, oh, all of a sudden he's amazing. Like more of a developmental piece, but definitely somebody that can step in and be successful with them for sure. So the Chiefs, 2 picks in a row. One of them has to be wide receiver. You lose arguably one of the best wide receivers in all of football, in Tyreek Hill. You already have your fast guys there. Somebody like Mecole Hardman. I know you can upgrade from that. I'm just saying. George Pickens, to me, makes so much sense here. A guy that runs in the 4.4s at 6'4", like 215, 220. When healthy is incredible. People forget that he tore his ACL in the spring last year. Came back for the playoff and was still very good then. But you get a guy that's fully recovered from that, I think you'll be very happy with what he can bring you. My thing is with the Chiefs, like I know I said I'm not doing trades on this. I don't see the Chiefs using both of these picks. I think at least one of these picks get traded, if not both. Like, use both of them to move up to the top 10 to take a great wide receiver in something like Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson, or something like Seattle, for example, to trade up to one of these picks and take a quarterback. It's obviously to be determined, but in this sense, obviously they're going to use both of them, but in draft night, I really don't see them using both of these picks. With the second one, part of me is tempted to just take another wide receiver. I'm not going to do that, but I think Kansas City needs, like, true edge rushers, because I know they're like, oh, their best pass rusher is Chris Jones, where it's like, okay, well, Chris Jones is an interior defensive lineman. He's a good one, obviously, they can get to the quarterback, but I think they need more of a true edge rusher. And I would say Ajabo, but I think they're going to want somebody to step in like immediately. So Boye Mafe makes sense. Eviketti kind of makes sense. I think Logan Hall sneaks into the first round and goes here. A team that I could kind of see this switching as well. Logan Hall going to Green Bay and Karlaftis going here. Either or. But yeah, they get their edge guy. Good wide receiver. Again, think if you're Kansas City, you're happy with that. Cincinnati, see, in past mock drafts, it's just O-line, O-line, O-line. Which they did a great job of addressing that in free agency. Alex Kappa, Lyle Collins, and was it Ted Karras? Ted Karras? I think. I could be wrong. Anyway, they definitely addressed it. I think they still draft one or two. It's not so pressing of a need as it was before. I think here you can get other positions like a cornerback, depending on how much you like Kyrie Elam, Kyler Gordon, something like that. You can go safety to pair with Jesse Bates back there. I don't know. If you're Cincinnati, you have options, right? Because your team is very strong, pretty much on both sides of the ball. I do like the Louis Cine pairing for them with Jesse Bates back there. I know they haven't gotten a long-term deal done with Jesse Bates. I assume they do, but if they don't, look for that to be a good pick. Especially if Bates leaves, and then he just becomes your true free safety back there. And then with the last pick of the first round, we got Detroit. This is an interesting one because I could see them taking a quarterback like Ritter, going linebacker with Nakobe Dean. I don't know. This is a tough one. Because how much do you really like Jared Goofball, you know what I mean? I think since you get your day one starter difference maker on the defense already in Aiden Hutchinson right here. And, okay, the thing with Detroit is that, like, they have another pick, like 2 picks after this. So depending on who Jacksonville wants to go with, I think this is kind of like the Giants situation where it's like you kind of got to depend on like, okay, who are they going to go after? I think if you're Detroit, you go into Kobe Dean here. You get your linebacker, you know, somebody that could possibly be in play for Jacksonville since they lost Miles Jack. And then maybe you even take quarterback like Desmond Ridder with one of those first picks in the second round. But yeah, that's it for that. Please feel free to leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section. I'd be happy to hear them, whether you agree, disagree. Tell me why. Yeah, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Draft night is 3 days away. And yeah, it's going to be exciting.